What up, boys and girls? Hope you're well. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I just wanted to jump back on and welcome you to this brand new episode of the podcast. And today I was lucky enough to be able to have a conversation with a guy who I sort of met on the interwebs. And he's a mindset coach with a background in video development and content creation and working with creatives and that kind of thing. So I really thought it was valuable to bring him on the podcast. And I saw an opportunity that we talk about in the podcast to bring him on and help him sort of talk a little bit more about what he does, but also I think there's a lot of value that he can bring to you and your businesses or what you want to do, even if you don't even run a business. I think there's some interesting mindset stuff that he talks about in this episode as well. So thank you so much for coming back and joining me once again. If you did enjoy this episode, then make sure to be subscribed to the channel if you're over on YouTube, and leave this video with a like, and I'll see you very, very soon.
At this present moment, people call me the mind mechanic, and I've been primarily this year, this put it over the edge. I've been on and off coaching people for quite frankly a decade, but I ran a video production company from high school, junior in high school. 2006, we officially opened the doors to my company called Gebb's Total Video, and did anything and everything related to video for a number of years, and shot over 300 weddings, dance recitals, graduations. I always tell that story. But then around 2010, 2011, got very focused within my wedding company, but also then that focus within my wedding company, I was specializing in something called the same day edit. And I did what I call now a my way decision. So I decided to do everything my way: shoot, edit, dress, speak. I eliminated pretty much almost everything out of my entire business. And that next 12 months was when I then got to, open up doors and work with people like Tim Ferriss and Tony Robbins and Lewis Howes, and been to Sir Richard Branson's private island 4 times, and all these crazy things that I got to do living in a town, 26,000 people here in the Midwest in the United States. And, mom cleans houses, dad works at cemeteries. I don't come from some entrepreneurial background or anything like that. And I just fell in love with helping people. And so I don't coach because it's some easier thing to do, or I couldn't figure out how to make money in video. If anything, when I got back hardcore into coaching last year in 2019, I'm still in 2020 earning less than I earned in 2017 and 2018. I mean, I had a $250,000 still video production company that I wasn't putting a lot of attention into, but I wasn't trying to earn from coaching anymore. I was just focused on my wife and our family and, taking care of things. And then I just couldn't take anymore. I mean, I think some people that are listening here have something inside of them, whatever that is, that's, to create their art, their web designer, graphic designer, videographer, photographer. There's something they can't shake, and maybe they've put it off for a long time. And I help people make sure that they can reignite that inside of them and figure out what's preventing them from moving forward on what they really want to do, rather than at times, even one of my most recent awesome success stories is a gal who wanted to be a music video director, and everybody who told her it was going to take her 10, 20 years. You have to do this, that, and the other thing, and start over here with something that has nothing to do with music videos or directing. And eventually you'd end up there. And within 12 months, she's now directing music videos, having key people in Greece reach out to her. And she accelerated that path because she was clear about what she wanted. But rather than let the external world shove her down paths because they think that's the path you got to take, when to me, there's always a potentially quicker path, better path, faster path, more fun path, et cetera, et cetera. So anyways.
No, that's really interesting. I mean, for me, it's kind of good the podcast for me is a place and a platform for me to really discuss different topics and sort of explore kind of and see and get to know other people and how they sort of, got to where they got. And I think the most interesting thing for me would be, because a lot of my audience are very starting out videographers, starting out photographers, they're entrepreneurial, they want to do what they love, but they're like, okay, I don't really know how to. So if you could give because I think the key answer or the key question, you've worked with some big names. How did you kind of get to working for, say, the local barber, the local, shop, etc., to then working with some, globally recognized brands, big people?
So I would argue, to the degree that I find now that people have less and less of an issue with knowing how to do something, rather than they are like yesterday on a session I was doing a guy, this idea. And so I'll tell my story for sure, but I want to bring it back to kind of tangible things that I did while simultaneously tangible things of people who are right in their shoes right now and identifying what's going on. So a guy was in a market here in Georgia, Savannah, Georgia in the States, and he's wanting to get into real estate video. And you can tell he knows what to do, but he's not doing it. And so he goes, well, there's 4 companies locally, they're bigger names, they're doing bigger things. And he makes up this whole thing and he goes, I don't know if I should reach out to them to learn what were they going to say. And, I've got some certain people I'm thinking about reaching out to, but, I don't know if I'm quite ready. And, he's saying these things. So it's like this idea that he knew things he could do. He kind of knew what to do. He knew how to make the videos, but yet he was paralyzed with fear of judgment and a lack mentality of like, there's not enough to go around, so these 4 guys, they already got the lion's share. So why me? I'm just some little Meon guy who's just getting started. And so that's how I started. I started as like, I'm this 19-year-old little punk that, I'm going to be lucky to get a couple $100, $500. That's where I started. My first wedding was $500. But like, I got a DVD from my mom. 2006, social media online was nothing compared to even 2/3 of the things weren't even available. And what was there wasn't to the degree of what it is today. And so my mom gave me a DVD of somebody's that just got married, of somebody's house she cleans. And I looked at that. That was my only example of how to film this wedding when I got asked to do it. And then I didn't even know what to price it. And I found out that the DVD I was watching was $1,800. And I thought, holy crap. Man, I'm like the saving grace to God. Like, here, I'm taking care of these people. $500. What a killer deal they're getting. Like, man, that guy's highway robbery over there at $1,800. Well, lo and behold, I became friends with a photographer locally that was getting $6,000. And they started referring me. And I am like, God dang, something's wrong here. Like, I'm getting $800. These people are getting $6,000. Like, what's going on? And I'll never forget one of the people they referred me. I was sitting with them and I was so weird and awkward. And I was like, I got this, I'm trying to do this different packages, and Kobe and them, charging so much more. And they're like, well, what would you like to get? And I'm like, I'd really love to get $2,000. Oh, by the grace of God, whatever, you want to believe, like, these people were kind of go, you deserve it. Like, they were like, okay, yeah, you're good. And they paid it. And then one of my first, so what I told this guy even yesterday, I'm going to give wedding scenarios right here. And then the Tony Robbins, some of these things. So this guy was afraid to reach out to what he deemed to be his competition, what he deemed to be competitors, And so one of my first $4,000 wedding videos came from my competition. On the phone, I kept hearing this one company name come up. I'm like, who are these people? And just because of, I guess, now I do things much more intentionally. Back then, I did things more intuitively. I lost my intuition, and now I'm intentionally and intuitive. That's a really powerful combination. But back then, I did certain things that I didn't know any better. So I thought I should reach out to these people. And so I called him up. The guy who got on the phone wasn't the owner, and he thought he put me on mute. And he goes, we got this Gebbs guy on the phone. Like, what do you want me to do with him? And I'm like, oh my God, okay. So then he gets me to the owner. His name was Joe. Joe was a really nice guy. Not the other guy wasn't nice, but this guy was really nice. About a week or two later, I had lunch. And a couple weeks after that, they sent me a lead that was somebody they couldn't book. And I booked it for $4,000 because I knew they were 8. It's like, if they're going to pay them 8, why don't I was maybe 2,500 at the time. So I try 4,000. And I happened to get it. And so, little by little, being unaware of things, that's really my goal now, is to, like the gal with the music videos, let's shorten this curve. So it might have taken me 5 years by bumping into walls and intuitively, unintentionally, unaware, doing certain things. Now I can see all that for somebody else and accelerate that. So the Tony Robbins and all of that. I mean, look, I was just thinking about this today with the guy that I was dealing with. It was a coach I had a call with. And even as a coach, just like in video, and all of you who's listening can be at a place where you look up to the Peter McKinnons or the Parker Walbecks or whoever you want to name that's out there that you look up to. And you may think there's something special about them, or why me? Like, there's already Parker, or there's whoever, right? And we can do these things. But what I've found is there's always a place where we start, and then we know what we'd like, but we also know we suck. And so there's this gap between us sucking and us seeing things that we think is amazing, and then kind of self-sabotaging. So that it's, again, information is in abundance. I, again, would argue that most people, for free, for cheap, for blogs, for videos, for courses, for whatever, the information's there. And a lot of people know on some basic level. Now, there's nuances I completely get that people may or may not know. But to the degree they're completely and entirely ignorant in every way, shape, or form on how to make something and potentially find someone that they could do it for, that's an excuse. You're living under a rock. I don't say that often. But what's the game-changing thing between even a super talented person who may have knowledge, who's still only getting $500 or $1,000 for work that could be getting 5 or 10? It is not, and this is what I've come full circle. In almost any industry, people focus on the technical first, then they maybe get into the business and the tactics, and then more of maybe is they work on their mind. They work on their attitude, their confidence, their clarity, their certainty, their conviction, their focus in what it is that they do. So even if we analyze, which was where I found you, Parker Wallback, people want results like him, and they hear things like multiple streams of revenue and da-da-da-da. Even a buddy I just talked to today, it's like most creatives are not delegating anything. They're just doing everything themselves. They're trying to run 5 businesses at the same time, and all are mediocre because they're diluting. For anybody who understands lighting, you can't expect the soft light LED that's diffused to cause a fire, to create a harsh shadow necessarily, unless you put the light 3 inches from your head, And so that's what a lot of people do. They're confused in the sense of what to focus on. They're fearful. They're procrastinating. They're not taking action. They're working on things they wouldn't do if they didn't need money. And the difference for me wasn't that my work got better. I moved to a different town. I externally got a different car. I dressed differently. And I just, essentially created a different external atmosphere where then people thought, wow, this guy's work's unbelievable. I got to work with him. So here's what I'd say, twofold. One, my mind shifted 100%. Because there are opportunities staring certain people right in their face. Maybe a friend, maybe an uncle has a multi-million-dollar company, and you're excellent at video. But if you don't believe in your product, if you don't believe in your service, if you don't believe in you, that opportunity that's staring you right in the face, you won't even approach. And so I had a guy with coaching that I shot for video for a year and a half, made about 80 grand back in 2011, 2012. Didn't do anything with him for a while. 2014, shot for him again. He reached out randomly, had lunch with me. 2016 comes back around. Haven't heard from him since 2014. Asked me to go to lunch. Every bone in my body said this guy was asking me to do a video project again. Now, at that point in time, I was pretty hot and heavy, wanting to do more coaching, but I was still primarily making money from video. We have lunch. He's telling me all this stuff. And I'm going, is there a video? Like, are you going to do you need something shot? And he goes, actually, man, he goes, no, there's no video. He goes, selfishly, I wanted some of the Gebbs juice. He says, I didn't know how you could help, but I thought you could help. And I'm looking around like, who the hell is he talking about? I think he's got the wrong guy. He's telling me about his $20 million company, the issues that are going on, all this stuff. And I'm thinking, in 2016, I thought, if somebody earns more than me, there is literally zero I can do to help them. Zero. So an opportunity with a person who's going, I want your help, who had the money to pay me probably pretty handsomely. And I had talent. He saw something in me, but because I didn't see anything in me, I'm just like, I don't know, man. And we didn't talk for 2 more years. And so then we talked again and some things started to happen. And then more and more has happened even recently in my life. But that is not a byproduct that I, again, moved, dressed differently, or bought different things, or even was tons better at what I did. I just now understood the value, believed in myself, and showed up in a different way. And it's just something that's not sexy, and that's why I would really question, and people question me at times. How bad do you really want this? There's 2 paths for a lot of creatives. I've seen people who innately, when we say are entrepreneurial, well, we got to kind of look deeply at what that really means. I mean, I had a candy machine business in high school. Like I did car wash things when I was, 12 years old. Like I have always been, I wanted to cut a hole in my parents' fence and sell popcorn to our opposing. We lived where our fence overlooked a football field, right? Like now I failed at that because I never did it because I was fearful and never took action, right? But like I've always been entrepreneurial, nor have I been employed as in I show up and clock in since I was in high school. So we're talking, I'm 34 now. I've generated a few million in revenue. I've always been self-employed. Some people are 27 years old and have always had a job and they have a dream of being self-employed or being able to do their creative things. But there's a difference between the person who would rather show up and shoot and edit and draw or write or create than a person who does that, but also really has some kind of business acumen or the mind and desire to do that. Now, I had an entrepreneurialism about me, fell into video, had some intuition. So all these things kind of fell into place on certain levels, always seeked out help. But the thing is a lot of creatives that I see struggle, if they didn't need money, wouldn't learn a lick of business. They freaking don't like it at all. They hate selling. They hate business. They hate all that. All they wish they could do is just freaking show up and do it. So what I do is if we can identify that, doesn't mean you'll never have a business. But I had a guy, I'll give you a quick story and then I'll stop here for a second. I go off on tangents, but I had known him for about 5 years and he always had a job. The job had nothing to do with creativity. It was like a 911 operator. This guy just answered the phone when somebody had something bad happening, right? And he didn't love it. He didn't hate it. Paid the bills. It was certain income, right? It was like, all right, I'm going to get paid every week if I just show up and do my job. But he loved video and he really dreamed, like a lot of people, dreamed of having a video production company. And he made about 10 or 15 grand on the side, having to find the job, sell the job, show up to the job, shoot the job, edit the job, the whole thing. But when I asked the question, if you never needed money again in the realm of what you're trying to do, what activity would you do? And it always rooted back in editing. He's like, that's all I want to do is edit. If I could just show up and edit, that'd be amazing. Well, for years, it was still under this assumption that I got to find the job, shoot the job. I got to have the whole video production company. And then maybe I can finally edit. And when in 2019, last summer, we were coaching back and forth, going back and forth. And finally one day he sends me a message. He says, Michael, I'm going to believe in me. You believe in me. And I'm declaring I'm an editor. Within 2 months, a few of his friends referred him to opportunities in editing. In 2 months, he quit his job, became an assistant editor on a Netflix documentary series, made double the money that he had ever made at his job and or self-employed, trying to run an entire video production company. Then that went for 9 months. Didn't have anything for a few months, which was different for him, a little uncomfortable. I talked to him about it. And then he got a job and got an HBO deal. And that just came out recently, an HBO doc series. And he's like, this is what it's like to never work a day in his life, because he only had to believe in himself or what he was, and he had built up that skill set, but he only had to sell himself once. Then he just showed up every day and edited. And that was his dream. And he made way more money than having to become better at sales and selling person after person after person and getting the job. And then maybe, I don't really want to shoot, so maybe I'll find people. I just want to edit. Now, after all this other shit I don't want to do, I finally get to edit. And so a lot of people never get to that because they're just not honest with themselves. Now, he may have an editing business someday that has 8 editors and he runs it. He's not editing, but that'll come later. We jump ahead. We see all these ads for 100 grand a month or 30,000 a month and all this, scale and leverage and hire a team. And some people half the people that attract to me just want to make freaking $2,500 a month. Shit, I've been making that since I was 18 almost, and so but they can't do that. And they've been at it for 2-3 years. And it's because they're chasing the wrong things for them. And nobody's telling them that there's another way, that the way that they're doing is not a wrong way or a bad way. It's just not the way. It is a way and there's other ways. And when I've done my best for myself and learned that there were other ways, it helped me take off. When I do that for others, it's like a relief that this crazy way that's been nothing but BS for freaking 3 years, they let go of those shackles and they make more happen in 6 months than they made happen in 6 years. So.
No. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, and the reason why I didn't jump in because I think was the tangent was valuable, and I think for me it's interesting because I've kind of known of you, and I know we've had like brief conversations, backwards and forwards, since I quote unquote digitally met you. And for me it's been very interesting to sort of see your mindset on entrepreneurship and how having creatives in that respect. But a question I did want to ask you was you kind of are here solely because I jumped in on a comment section basically saying you were asking to come on podcasts. And for me, it was always interesting when people say that because sometimes it's I want to get more brand awareness around what I do. That may be the answer. But for me, I mean, the question there is like, why did you want to come on more podcasts? Why did you want to kind of,
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, you're not wrong. And I think that whether I'm doing what I'm doing or somebody's a videographer or a photographer or a writer or an artist or a real estate person, whoever they are, there's a few things that take place. Initially, more than likely, people have two problems. They have a product and they have an eyeballs problem. I mean, they don't have any who's, they don't have any connections, and their product sucks. So therefore, you kind of need to work on your product and get better at that because, it doesn't even matter if you know the right people. If you suck at what you do, like I said, the guy was interested in me, but I didn't even believe in what I had. So it didn't matter that a person was ready to work with me. So you typically do got to work on whatever you want to sell. You got to be somewhat decent at it, believe in it. Then you need awareness because so many people are posting on Instagram and 4 people see it. And it's the same 4 people over and over and over again, even though they might have 800 followers. It's still like 2/3 of them don't see it, don't care, whatever, or it's the wrong people potentially. Now, for me, a lot of it for a while, like with that guy, he still saw enough of something. So I had more there than I was at that moment in time in 2016. I had more available to me than I believed in myself, or else that guy wouldn't have even contacted me, right? So he saw something that was there more than I saw in myself. And then over the time, I continued to build up that belief and that confidence by coaching more and doing more and learning more and doing more and learning more. Kind of a lot behind the scenes, a lot private. And for 2019, 2020, my kind of 2 words were trust and faith in self. Because what I'd realized is that, like I'm saying there, being really good at something, but if I don't believe in myself, and I already did this in video. So I already experienced this once, but in coaching, it was different. And so I really had to cement that over the last couple of years, this belief and trust in self. And then it's probably about a month ago or less, some things started to happen. And I realized, I don't have a product problem anymore. The results over the last 6 months I've been getting with people, again, I said 6 months, 6 years, like I have gotten more clients and more results faster in the last 6 months than I had in the prior 6 years with the clarity, the conviction, the certainty, the techniques that I'm working with people. But what I realized to make the impact and the income that I want, I just can't keep, going live on my personal page all the time and just continuing to put myself in front of the exact same people. Some are interested and some aren't, but I need to draw awareness. So like last Wednesday, an example is even a year ago, I had connections just like that guy who I didn't think I could do anything for. In the last 6 months, all the relationships I built up in video production, when I had the coaching, I'm like, well, that was a waste of 8 years. Like there's nothing I can do with them anymore. Well, in the last 6 months, that shifted. So one guy runs a multi-million-dollar company. I've been talking to him for 4 months now, trying to do something. And finally, last Wednesday, I got on a call with 80 people on a Zoom session of his clients. And 2 hours in, 65 of them were still on going, holy crap, this is incredible. And 15, 20 people came into my world, 20, 30 people and are now potential coaching clients and things are happening. And so right now I'm in a stage where I know the kind of work I do. You're talking about creative. So I don't know whether there's going to be 4 people that listen to this that like it, or there's going to be 400, or there's going to be 4,000. Right now, I really don't care because for me, it's practice. For me, it's momentum. For me, I take action. So there might be a time where I go, I'm much more ruthless about what I did it with video. Like I reached a point, I didn't have enough time in a day to go shoot some $500 project for somebody because I had so much time with $4,000. Let's just use a number, but $4,000 projects that taking time to spend a week doing 500 was not a best use of time because it took money out of my pocket and it took I didn't have the time. Right now, I have more time than I have demand, full transparency. So I'm willing to practice what I preach and essentially go on, build momentum, continue to practice, gain more clarity. Like today, though, I mean, I had a guy who was a video client, and he literally said he's coming in his podcast. He has 455 episodes. He's going to end it on episode 500. And because of my confidence and belief in myself, I immediately sent him a message. I mean, he was a video client, big podcast. And I said, hey, would you be willing to rock it out on an episode together? And 10 minutes later, he said, definitely a yes. Probably do it in January. And I would have done that 6 months ago. Like, I'm not good enough for him. Like, what am I going to bring the value to him? So we all have these stages that we have to continue to step outside our comfort zone, continue to move forward and learn and grow and learn and grow and learn and grow. And there's going to be people, you want a $5,000 project right now, and it's not going to happen because your work's not there. Your confidence isn't there. You need to just take the freaking $500 project or maybe even free. And then you'll figure something new out from that. The next time it might be 800, right? The next time, some people were doing free and 500 and they were thrilled. They were pumped. Now their work's so damn good and they're pissed off because they're still doing $500 projects because they are worth more than that. And now it's a mental thing, not a, but they think they're stuck in this minutia of these 500 when it wasn't something you got into that you hated. It's just now you've grown, you're more confident, but now you think you're stuck and can't figure out how to get out of these cheap projects that were great when you started. So.
No, absolutely. I think that personally for me anyway, like I relate a lot to that because as I've grown my own production company and as I've kind of outsourced a little bit and, tried to, as the time has become more and more precious, I've also seen myself that the natural projects I can charge for are going up as well. So I'm less likely to go, there's a $500 project or whatever it is, etc. But there's also some projects that I still want to do because I really, really love the project, right? But then you're in a position when you're making, say, 4K, 5K, whatever it is per project, where you can then just go to that client and go, well, it doesn't actually matter what the budget is because I don't need the money, and you don't. It's
a beautiful place to be in.
Yeah, I think the main question for a lot of people is going to be, firstly, like, was your switch into coaching more specifically due to COVID? And specifically
like
that.
No.
I think that would be a natural progression. I think personally anyway, you've only benefited from
I have, but COVID by no stretch of the imagination was it put it over the edge. But I literally did my first one-on-one day that somebody paid to spend a day with me, $1,500 in 2010. And so if anything, it's been a pursuit that I honestly ended up with those coaches and thought leaders and people I filmed for, not because I wanted to film for them, but because I traded my video skills initially for access to their $3,000 events and everything else. And what came full circle now, probably one of my biggest tools in my toolbox for coaching is that I wanted to do speaking and coaching back 2010, 2011, 2012. And I was doing some of it, but I really wasn't earning well. And I was learning from these people. But the people that attract to me are confused as to why, like I said, they've learned so much. They've bought so many courses, books, programs. They've listened to these people. Why on earth are they stuck? Why on earth are they not earning what they'd like to earn? Why on earth have they not quit their job yet? And whatever it is. And so for me, a lot of the advice out there is coming from a place that is, here's what I do, or here's what I did, do the exact same thing. So if somebody doesn't, what I found is a lot of people didn't like one-on-one coaching. So the people I was learning from were like, well, that's not scalable. That's not leverageable. You need to program a course, a step-by-step, a membership site. You need to figure out how did you help those people? Break it down into a formula, and then you can sell that. You can record that and sell that. And I did a lot of those things and I experimented a lot and I always felt massively frustrated. And it's because for me, it doesn't matter how much I could earn from any of those things, even if I could. If you removed this right now, what I'm doing with you from the equation, there'd be no amount of fulfillment because people think money is going to solve their problem. But if you're still doing shit you don't want to do, it doesn't matter how much. Plenty of people have tons of money and they're miserable. Now, some people don't have any money, like, give me that problem. Yes, I understand fundamentally where they're coming from. When you don't have money, it sucks. Not being able to pay your bills, not being able to eat, missing payments, eviction, whatever these things that are happening. It's not pleasant. But simultaneously, that's why you see people in corporate, all sorts of certain things where they got to show up, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 8. They're working 60, 80 hours. And it's like, but they're in these like golden shackles, and they don't get to do what they want. They don't get to let their creativity shine. That's why you heard me probably talk about before, like the order taker, master chef, this idea that a lot of creatives sit back. They have all this creativity inside of them. And when somebody comes to them, they just put up their freaking menu and say, here's what I got. What do you want? And pick it off the board. And it's like that fundamentally will also get you paid the least. There is, I hate to say it, but very little value in people anymore who only know how to only shoot or edit and have no feedback that they're willing to share. They're just do what they're told, keep their mouth, because you're very replaceable. There's freaking 8-year-olds who can edit just as good as some 40-year-old been doing it for 20 years. It's true. It's unfortunate maybe for that 40-year-old, but it's true. And so even for me, like, I don't care if the person's got a degree. I don't care if they suck at what they do. I care if they have, I have a guy who more or less took over my production company in a lot of ways, kind of sold it to him to a degree, who he paid me to train him. I spent a day with him. He came to this event, helped us shoot. We didn't use one lick of footage the first year. Not one thing he shot we didn't use. I loved the guy, though. He was fun to be around. So the next year we went back out to San Diego and I said, hey man, we'll be back. I'm not going to pay you, but if you want to come, you can help, you can learn, you can talk to me, we can connect. I thought you were a blast, but we didn't use anything last year. I don't necessarily need you to be there, but if you want to come, awesome. Year 2, we use a little bit of his footage. Year 3, same ordeal. I'm not paying you, blah, 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 blah. And my editor who was there was like, dude, he's shooting better than you. I was like, really? And so I started bringing him to things. And before you know it, I was sending him to $12,000 projects that I wasn't even on. But it was because he had a drive. He had a passion. He was easy to deal with. He was fun. And he learned and he grew and he got better. And so he went from somebody who paid me to teach him to mediocre for a few years. And then something switched in him that he just kept learning and learning. And then he accelerated and he had this drive and passion. And I loved him. And then he's doing really well now. And yet I've had other people who had $120,000 degrees from Webster University in the States or Full Sail University or something. They sucked. And then they also had no coachability. They thought what I was doing was wrong. And they weren't even making any money doing what they were doing. They're trying to come in and tell me because they felt entitled because of a degree.
Mm-hmm. No. I mean, definitely. I think, and just for full transparency, I don't technically agree with getting a degree for the sake of getting a degree. I think the point of getting a degree in some scenarios, in some jobs, is there's obviously a point to, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to be a doctor,
don't be a brain surgeon and say you watch YouTube videos.
yeah, exactly. I think it's important for certain roles, but I think for a videographer or a creative or
useless
some level of business, it's not something that you need to have. If you have the drive, you have the want, what you just
if anything, it can hurt you more than it can help you. I think the only pro you could get as a whole would be connections. If you're going to go just simply to have an experience and connect, great. But typically, probably 9 out of 10 of formal education is boxing you in, teaching you to be a duplicate of what else is out there. That's why this My Way decision is meant to have better discernment of everything that you learn so that you can now go out into the industry and carve your own path and be a blend of all these things and all these people that you've learned from, while then ignoring all that you've learned and being your own unique self that essentially people can't get anywhere else versus being, well, I've looked at 5 videographers here, and to the best of my knowledge, they all kind of sound the same, look the same, work looks the same, and the prices range from $500 to $5,000. Well, I don't want to do the cheapest guy. Definitely not going to do the most expensive. So maybe we'll pick $1,500, but there's no reason to pay $5 if they all look the same, because under $5,000, for the context for everybody, what I've seen a lot in the industry is under $5,000 for most services, people are price sensitive. So they're not booking, they're not going, I'll pay $5,000 because I think the most expensive is the best. people who start to pay beyond $5,000 for projects, there's a lot more of the that can happen where they'd rather pay 10 just simply for brand recognition of somebody. Like I remember, if anybody's ever heard of Simon Sinek, there's somebody I know who used to date somebody high up in the Simon Sinek, the Start With Why Guys organization. And their thing in-house when somebody called to book Simon to speak is they said, do you want the man or do you want the message? And the man was 100 grand and the message was 10. The message and the man were the same in both, like the message was the same, I should say, in both scenarios. It's just one, you got Simon. Why? Because some organizations were fine with just giving and having them teach the message to their corporation. And they didn't give a shit about, they weren't trying to fill butts and seats, but yet the brand is what brought butts and seats. So they could pay 100 grand if it brought 400 grand in tickets. Right. And so some creatives, I had a guy once who was getting $10,000, $15,000 for wedding videos. When we became good friends, he's like, Gebbs, I can't refer you. Not because your work isn't just as good or better than mine, but because your brand and your pricing and the way that is positioned, the people that book me want to go, I got such and such for 15 grand, not, oh, I got this great deal, And so that's something that people have got to realize. And that's something I didn't know any of that. Look, I don't come from affluence. I don't come from a rich background and things where I was around money. Again, my mom cleans houses. She used to work in a bank, and my dad has worked at a cemetery for 35 years. And even most of the people in my closest of circles don't have any big business, don't have business in general, nor do they earn, more than $50,000 a year. And so, and I live in a town that's technically overall a depressed town as a collective whole. Like I got to go 30, 40 minutes to start hitting more affluent towns, bigger money. And so it took me, even I think those photographers were the first ones that I started to have a relationship with, who I'm like, oh, I'm not taking advantage of people if I'm charging more than $500. Like I'm not screwing them over. And so it's interesting. And a lot of people got to start to break outside those shells and surround themselves. But you know what? A lot of creatives, they'll bitch and moan at spending $100 on something, but they'll spend freaking $10,000 on a camera, and then wonder why they can't figure out how to make a dime with it. And then they got to sell it 6 months later to pay the rent. And that's the difference at times between a person who ends up having a $300,000 business and a person who can't figure out how to make $3,000. It's because they focus none more of their time on technical than that. Like it's all on the technical, and they think it's the camera and their fancier computer and all that, when 99% of these people that are going to pay a premium for what you do not care one bit what you're shooting on and what you're using. And people who end up flipping that switch, like yourself, see that to be true.
Yeah, I think for me that's an interesting question, and I think this would be interesting for a question to ask you. Have you ever had a client that's asked you what you're shooting on?
I've had two scenarios that pop into my mind. I had one guy who I filmed his wedding, who owned a video production company. And he was more sensitive to I got the job and everything, but he was definitely I think more out of curiosity for this particular guy, of what I did. It wasn't a deal breaker thing necessarily or anything like that. Like, oh, if you don't do this or don't do that, but he owned a video production company. So he was just very curious what I was using and all of that. And maybe there's three here. And then there was my agency, when I shot for some freelance for a company, they were a little bit more sensitive to what you may or may not own. And then number three, I had one in 14 years. I did have one that I do believe I lost the job because I wasn't on a Mac. Like they literally asked me what I was shooting on or what I was editing on. And I told them I was a PC guy on Sony Vegas, and they were a little weird about it. But in 14 years, and literally, I have 2,400 videos on my Vimeo. I've done hundreds, if not thousands of projects in 14 years. And it's in the 0.001% that what I used was ever an issue.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the main point that, I like to say a lot is it's more about you as a filmmaker, or as a, in my case, or in any case, it's you, your personality, what value you add, why you add it, how you do it. than me shooting on an Airy, me shooting on a Red, me shooting on an whatever, right? Insert favorite brand of camera here, right? It doesn't necessarily matter.
I have seen many people who aren't even earning 30 grand a year, who are on better equipment and cameras than half a dozen guys I know who earn between $100,000 to $500,000 a year. Like, people who are earning less than 30 grand a year have better gear than people who I know who run $100,000 to $500,000 companies. Like, I know one guy, he was doing $350 a year and he was still shooting on a 70D and a Mark III up until like 6 months ago. Now he has a Mark IV, and then a lot of guys that I know have Sony A7 IIIs that they've been shooting on for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and they've got $100,000. I shot $10,000 projects in 2019 that were on 70Ds. And no problems. I mean, I'm not trying to sit here and shame that it couldn't have been slightly better if I was shooting on some 4K camera and things, but it's a bunch of semantics. Most of us are viewing things on this freaking phone right here, which to a degree, 1080p still looks great. There's back end things we can do on 4K that can be better, but like the view of it, the look, most people aren't delivering things for movie theater screens, or are they even watching our videos? Most, not all, but are even watching our videos on freaking 8K monitors and 4K. They're watching it on phones. And so, anyways.
No, absolutely. And I really agree. And I think it's important for, especially like bringing it full circle back to the start of this conversation, which was like, for people who are starting out and really think about that. And a lot of one of the common like misconceptions that I hear is, oh, I don't have camera X, I don't have lens Y, so I can't do X, Y, and Z. Well, actually, yes, you can get every single shot. Is it going to be a lot harder if you don't have a gimbal? Is it going to be a lot harder if you don't have a drone? Is it going to be a lot harder if you don't have a good low light lens? Yes, of course. But you can still do it. It's just going to be a little bit more mentally challenging. And I think if you can do it with bad gear.
Well, I had $2 million in revenue, never had a drone, and then simultaneously always used a GlideCam 2000 HD handheld. And like I said, my cameras, I mean, I was shooting on Mark IIs from 2010 through 2014, 15. Then I got 70Ds. And then a lot of the people even that I contracted out were on A7 IIIs, like they weren't on. And those are $1,000 to $2,000 cameras. Some people have the cameras we're mentioning here, and they're saying what you're saying, and that's why if people can realize when I do the mind work I do, we've got to take responsibility for ourselves versus blaming gear, blaming people, blaming where we live, blaming all these external things. But people don't take me seriously. They see me as a hobbyist. People can't afford me. It has nothing to do typically with the fact that there isn't people around that are going to be able to pay for what you do. If you can take the responsibility and start to say, I don't take myself seriously. I don't see value in what I do. I don't value what I do. I see myself as a hobbyist. I don't believe in myself. Now you can do something about it, because if you need the external world to start believing in you, or like that guy, he saw value in me, yet I saw no value in myself. Therefore, no transaction happened. And so again, the creatives that are looking for like these magical things to happen that essentially will then boost their self-esteem and boost their confidence, it's like we've got to first do with what we have and get out there. And that's going to mean some free and cheap projects, because that's all the talent and things we have at our disposal right now. But then you'll build up that confidence a little bit. You'll get a little bit better at what you do, and you'll see a little bit more value. Now you'll go from free or $250 to maybe $600. And then you'll inch your way up. And some people can do that in 6 months. And some people are going to do that over 6 years. There's no right or wrong path. It's just to the speed at which you move and take action. I have an audiobook called Massive Imperfect Action. And, the thing with that is that I'll never forget, it was actually Tony Robbins at an event. And he said, when he wanted to be one of the best speakers around, and that's part of this podcast thing, if I'm being honest right now. It's that he goes, if I want to be one of the best speakers around, I looked and I saw them speaking 2 or 3 times a month. And I thought, you know what? I don't care if I'm talking to 1, 50, or 500. I'm going to talk 3 to 5 times a day if I can. Now, to the literalness of 7 days a week, 3 to 5 times a day, I don't know. But if you just compound, and let's say that math could work out to 5, and times 5 is 25. That would be 100, whether it's one person, that'd be 100 people, or whether it's 10 people, that'd be 1,000. But if it was 5 people a day, 5 days a week, times 4, it'd be 100 people, right? Some people are not even doing 5 projects in a year. So for me right now, it's like, I don't even know what might just happen with you. Who knows, right? There's no expectation. That's what people learned that people have to do, is that when we do, I'm talking about this good and bad free work. Good free work is work that you seek out and you do it your way, the way you want it, right? Bad free work is hey, I'm going to hook you up. I know all these people, and you're going to get exposure, and then you don't even do something you're excited about.
I can pay you in exposure.
Yeah, and it's going to take a week and of your time. It's not even a project you want to do, and then you have this tit for tat. So it's like you expect this person to do something for you. You expect them to give you exposure and referrals, and then when they don't, which is most of those people that do that, you're pissed off. And then you view free work as I get screwed over and I don't have time for that. Yet what happens is weeks, months, and years pass where you don't even do anything because you don't have any portfolio or work or confidence to get paid $5,000, but you feel like you should get it because you're getting screwed over for free. But if you could strategically use free work to open up doors, which is what I did. Our first video for Tony was free. We spent almost $8,000. Now I have all the way up to that, spending $8,000 and having that pay off months later, to things that I did for free that paid off. But there were always things that I wanted to. So me coming on here, I just love to do what I'm doing right now. And I have no expectation that anything's going to happen. But back to that, how to become a great speaker, how to become great at what you do, the more I get on here, talk to different people like yourself, get different questions thrown at me, then the more I tweak what I'm doing, how I say, and how I'm thinking, how I'm acting, and the better I get. And then the more value I provide, and then the better I can get paid for that value. And across the way, sometimes people I'm going to even be interviewed by might want to hire me. Sometimes they won't. That's okay. Keep moving forward, right? I did weddings that, 500 people in existence, not one soul came up to me and said anything. And then I had weddings that 80 people saw it, and there was a line of 10 wanting to talk to me at the end of that. Some booked me for their wedding the week later. They were like, oh my God, we don't even videographer. We thought wedding videos sucked. And I've never seen anything like that. And a week later, I'm going to shoot their wedding after I did the video. So if you can get out there and just do more work, massive imperfect action, believe in yourself, believe you're not taking advantage. You're not. A lot of creatives studying human behavior for about 6-7 years now. A lot of creatives tend to be passive types. So they tend to be types that are afraid to bother people, annoy people. I don't know if I want to reach out. What are they going to think of me? I don't know. And so we've got to overcome that, to know that you're a person who cares, who wants to help, and that people are busy, but yet, don't take non-responses as no's. And that's what even the guy yesterday with the real estate, he goes, oh, I reached out to some people, I don't hear back from them. And, I just think that I bothered them, or I already lost the job before I even got a chance. It's like, I just got a coaching client signed up who was from Full-Time Filmmaker, who freaking followed me for a year, never responded. He responded to the first few messages, and then I never got a response out of him again for 9 months. And then he saw Facebook Live recently, reached out, had a conversation, and he goes, you know what? I was fearful. I didn't know if it was the right time. And I've seen that with video. I had a buddy, 8 months he followed up. He met him in an event. The guy loved him. They hit it off. Never could get him back on the phone for like 8 or 9 months. The guy either ignored him or emailed back and said, I'm really busy right now. I appreciate it, but I'm not interested, but it's not the right time. And finally he did a video and he sent it to the guy and said, hey, this is something like I thought we just did this. This is something like I thought we'd do for you. I just thought of you, wanted to reach out. Guy got on the phone that next day. And over the next couple years, over referrals and that client, he made a couple $100,000. But if he deemed that guy's non-responses or interestedness over the first month or so and just said, well, I guess this is never going to happen, or he's obviously not interested now, I thought he was excited, as a no, he would have lost that few $100,000 in revenue. So if you can just realize that, and again, you didn't ask me, but I'm thinking it right now. Like in the 14 years, I can count on less than one hand the people who ever looked at me and said, hit the road, Jack, didn't you get the picture? And we're talking thousands of people I've interacted with. If anything, most, whether it was video or coaching, if you believe enough in what you have and you can do a good job and you care about people, I've had more times than not that people say, thank you for being persistent. Thank you for following up. And if you can root in that, now you don't get as fearful of like what's going to happen if you reach out to people and what are they going to say. And the worst thing that's going to happen typically is you get a no, and you always get a no when you don't ask or try. So at least if you try, there's opportunity. And I've rooted in that opportunity because that's where my magic has happened. Because if you think you're not going to get a job and what's the point, or you're going to annoy them, well, by not reaching out to them, you guarantee failure. Like you 100% guarantee failure. But at least if you try, failure, quote unquote, may happen, but you also might have a chance that something really cool happens and you get to do a really amazing project. So,
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's one of those things. If you never roll the dice, you'll never win, right? Like we talk about this a lot in creative, and a lot of creatives talk about it, going, "Oh, I haven't got that job yet," right? Whatever that job is for that person, and it's like, well, okay, well, how many videos are you doing for yourself a year, right? What are you doing just around awareness, right? Do you have a podcast? Are you talking about what you do? You know, it doesn't have to be through podcast form, but the main reason why I have a podcast is actually not because I make money from it. It's because it gives me a platform to talk to people like yourself. One, for me to learn from others, number one. Number two, also just for me to talk about what I sell. You know, and I have clients who I now work with, you know, from a video standpoint, that are like, oh, part of the reason why I hired you was because I listened to your podcast. Or part of the reason why I hired you was I heard a snippet from your podcast. But then also, as COVID hit, I then started offering podcast consulting and podcast filming and etc. And it's now become quite profitable to do as well. So it's one of those things where I think if you don't, you know, if you put yourself in a position where you're gonna not set yourself up to fail, that's the wrong term, but you know, you need to set yourself up to at least be given an opportunity, or be given a chance to do anything, especially at the start when you start out, because the reality of the fact is you're just a random person to the majority of people you're going to reach out to. So the majority of the people are going to go, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
What the fuck do you do?
Well, and
you know,
I mean, and people don't realize that the reason they're not getting things is because they're invisible. Like you talk about awareness, that's what we're talking about here. Like if we got a metaphoric invisibility cloak on, and we're complaining again because we're not getting any work and nobody's contacting us and nobody wants to work with. Yeah, we make this story up in our head, but we're not even talking to people. Nobody even knows we exist to hire. It's not like we talk to 80 people. No one usually tells me I talked to 80 people, like on the phone, told them about my services or offered my services, and all 80 people said, you are an idiot, you're a moron, leave me alone, you're annoying, I don't want to hire you. No, if they really start talking to people, believe in their product and start offering it, it doesn't take 80 people to get one yes, because depending on what one wants to do creatively, if you just look in your family circle, since you guys aren't offering, guys and gals aren't offering a pyramid scheme or these things where people have this weird on edgeness about, it's like you might know that your uncle's wife owns a really cool business, and you could go, hey, I'm getting into this video thing. I'd love to experiment with her business to make a little promo for free. And now you've got somebody who knows, likes, and trusts you and says, sure, come in. No problem. That's cool. And then you come in and you get some practice with somebody that's real low pressure. And then you have that one case study that you can take to open up other doors.
Yeah, and then use it to snowball and gain momentum. And it's, I think that would be, and that's a nice place to end, considering that that's kind of where we started. And, you know, that was one of my initial questions was like, well, why come on the podcast in the first place? You know, it was to gain momentum, gain brand awareness, or what you do. My last question
practice
that
what
I
I
think
preach,
would be
brother.
interesting. No, it's good. No, it's really good. But I mean, the question I think that would come to mind for me would be, at what stage would you say, and this is going to be not an easy one for you to answer because there's no catch-all answer here, and I'm aware of that. But at what stage would you say someone should be looking for a consultant, specifically?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because those terms get a moniker of the mind mechanic because it doesn't have this connotation around coach and consultant and mentor. And sometimes I think mentor has the least negative connotation around it. You know, coach has I had a lot of bad experiences with the coach, of full transparency. And I had a few really great ones. But, you know, I think that if you are dead set serious, I mean, for me, I mean, I'm getting crazy results like people quitting chewing tobacco right now and fixing marriages and building their business. So that wasn't always the case. For a long time, it was like me helping people charge more money and certain things around their packages with video and whatnot. But for anybody listening to this, I mean, if they're dead set serious on really like having a business, like actually having a business and being an entrepreneur in that sense, not just, I'd really rather be like the guy I'm saying where it's just like, let me just get a job with somebody and just freaking edit or shoot. And the only thing I got to do is show up and edit or shoot. If that's really it, then if that's what you own into, then you don't necessarily, I mean, I do a lot of life stuff with people with anxiety, stress, worry, frustration, relational things and stuff like that as well. But just from a purely like, should I hire a business coach or consultant? Consultants a lot of times tell people what to do. Coaches can be very encouraging. At times, the wrong ones can still try to tell you what to do. For me, the worst coaching experiences I had were people telling me what to do. I quite frankly don't like being told what to do. So for me, I don't usually ever tell people what to do. I want to draw out of them what they want to do and then find a way for them to own into that, to be able to start to see the different ways that they could do it. So provide perspective. And then from there, have a belief. See, one of my biggest success stories, he goes, before you, I saw things negatively, pessimistically. There was no hope. There was no possibility. And so if you live in that place, you're going to tend to take very little action, because if you don't think it's possible, why take much action? It's not possible for me anyways. And so we self-sabotage by using language and belief patterns that essentially keep you stuck because it's gloom and doom. It's gloom and doom. Why do anything? It's not worth it. It's a waste of time. But if all of a sudden I can shift your perspective to a perspective of hope and possibility and optimism, and that you're going to do things that you're excited about. I have this one quick story. I had a guy once, he was making it about getting clients. How do I get more clients? And he had 2 clients that were making him $5,000 a month. So I said, how did you get those clients? And he says things. I said, so let me ask you this. If I could, with a magic wand, give you 2 identical clients to what you have right now, the workload, the money, and so now you're making $10,000 a month. I said, how would that make you feel? And he didn't go, holy crap, that would be incredible. That's all I want. He went, no, I would, and he said all this stuff that was basically saying, no, I wouldn't be happy with that. So the problem was not that the guy didn't know how to get work. It's that subconsciously he wasn't going after the work because he wasn't clear that the work he had, he wasn't happy with. So if he goes and takes more action will mean more problems, more challenges, more negative. So why take more action to get more work if more work's going to mean it sucks? And so if we don't know that, we think we don't know how to get work, right? That's what you rooted at the beginning of this whole thing, that these people don't know what to do. Give them the benefit of the doubt is what I do. And I believe that most people in the last 2 years I've worked with, they know exactly what to do, but they aren't doing it. And they're not doing it because they don't know why they're not doing it. And most people just kick people in the ass with a little just do it like Nike and say, well, you know what to do, or go look at my course. A lot of people in these programs are like, well, did you watch the video in the course? Yeah, mother effer, I looked at the course 18 times and I don't know what to do. And so for me, at least whether you hire me is someone with the way I work with people, or you look for somebody for me that you can observe something observable about them, that they're not holding things hostage. I don't have anything for sale that you like. Everything I talk about for free, I'll talk about privately or in my group thing that I coach people. But it's the nuance of the individual. I say tuning up hearts and minds one at a time. For me, I'm always talking to an individual and untangling for them, because what I'm going to say to you right now, if you were to ask me something specific about your business, may be different than I'm going to tell another person at a different stage in their business. And so if they're dead serious about having a business, then they really need to consider the bottom line. If you plan on spending, if you own a few $1,000s a year, and you're thinking you're not succeeding right now, and you're about to go spend 3, 4, 8, 10, 15, 20, 30, $40,000 in gear, and you wouldn't spend any money on someone like me, then I just give you a 2 thumbs up. Good luck. Because I promise you that someone like me, whether they're me or not, could accelerate that and have you more than likely earning double, triple, quadruple what you're earning with what you have. But then if you just love gear, sure, go buy it. But if you can't, you shouldn't be having $10,000, $15,000 cameras. You can't even figure out how to make $20,000 in a year. And that's where, I've shifted my model to have things about as affordable as I can possibly offer it to people. And so it's not 3, 4, 5, $10,000 to work with me. And that's what I saw a lot. The people I've created for myself and for others in the creative field, what I wish I could find, because I do know that people are scared when they're maybe earning 10 or 20,000 bucks. This idea of going to work with somebody that may be excellent, who might cost you 4, 5, 10,000 bucks. I've had those people. And then the positive I got out of it was that it positively sucked. And that I learned to flip the switch on the negative, but it wasn't like, oh my God, this was game changer. I had some, but those were people that, man, it was like needles in a haystack, because what I found is most things online, they're far better marketers than they are actually coaches or consultants or good with human behavior and helping people. So they're great at selling you this magical result that you want, which is freedom and to do what you want whenever you want, to be creative and make money doing it. They're great at getting you latched into that. But then when you get inside, there's just 3,000 videos that you got to watch and you're left to your own to figure it out. And then you go in the Facebook group and, hopefully no major judgment here, not trying to be rude, but it's a lot of blind leading the blind, which means people who don't really know what the heck they're doing, trying to tell people where to go and what to do. And there's a lot of people sometimes who don't even make 10 grand a year giving people advice because they love to give advice. And they fundamentally, this is why me as a coach, I failed initially. And this is why a lot of coaches fail, because they intellectually know things. So when they see Johnny Appleseed over here ask a question in the Facebook group, they got an answer for it because they know what they should do, Bruton. But the problem is they're not doing it. And so for me, I realized that I was spewing a lot of advice. That was stuff I did to build my production company, but I wasn't even living that life. I wasn't even living that advice in my current stage. And so when I went and looked deep inside and had to realize, when I said practice what I preach, I got more results in the last 6 months, last 6 years, because I was practicing what I was preaching, and people can feel that. That's why fake it till you make it, I don't typically resonate with, because the reality means usually you're lying to someone and trying to act like you're bigger than you are. Some people can get away with that and it works for them. Other people feel really weird about trying to act like they're better than they actually currently feel like they actually are. And so if we can align that and realize, hey, this is where I'm at right now. I just got started and, and then you start there and you build your way up and you go from there. So hopefully that's an answer that can help bring some clarity.
No, absolutely. I mean, and I really appreciate your time. Where can people find you if they're either interested in, I don't know, maybe reaching out and working with you, perhaps?
Yeah.
I know, crazy things have happened. Or even if it's just to touch base and sort of see where you also end up with podcasts. Or your own
for sure.
I'm
the main platform I seem to connect with people the best is Facebook, quite frankly. So you can see my wonderful smiling face with my wife and thumbs up by Michael Gebben, or facebook.com/Gebs86. That's GEBBS 86. And then you can go to jumpstartyourlife.net, and that has my podcast, has my audio book on there that gives my full depth of my story and a really high energetic. If you enjoyed this today, you'll love that. I've had people listen to this sucker 2 and 3 times. And then it has my Mind Tune Up Method little audiobook on there as well that has a breakdown of how I really view things with the mind. And then the main thing I do is what I call Mind Tune Up Time Live. So every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 and 2, I get on Zoom and I'm just working. It's a group setting. People are on there and we're digging in, and I'm coaching people. It's really affordable. In fact, what I do right now is the recording of this on my site. You can see one day free access pass. And so on mindtuneuptimelive.com, you can go there and there's a 1-day access pass. You can come to 1 day's worth of sessions. So at 10 or 2 or both. But that's what I got. So mindtuneuptimelive.com, jumpstartyourlife.com or jumpstartyourlife.net. And check me out on Facebook, Michael Gebben. So love to hear from you if you found value in this, and just reach out. I love to help. So.
Fab. Thank you very much for your time, man. It's it's been good. It's been really good.
Cool.
Thank you so much for joining me once again, ladies and gentlemen. I did hope you did enjoy that episode of the podcast. I really, really appreciate it, and I really, really appreciate your time in coming back and enjoying this episode once again. I hope you took some value from it. I'd love to hear in the comment section down below what your most valuable piece of information or from this conversation was. So let me know in the comment section down below. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me once again. There'll be a brand new episode next week, and we're rapidly either in or getting towards the end of the year. So I'm going to do a special episode around the end of the year, or just as we go into the new year, talking about some of the changes, some of the things, and there's just a nice thing to sort of do for the end of the year as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week for a brand new episode of the podcast.